So my name is Bernadette Trapp. I'm the Director of Community Schools at Mercer Street Friends. I'm a very visual person, so the slides are also here for me, but please stop me at any time if you have questions, you need clarity or anything. Okay? So we're going to talk about building authentic school community partnerships. And hopefully by the end of the session, you'll understand how we operate in conjunction with each other, what educators value, build authentic, sustainable partnerships, and maybe leave with some actionable strategies. A little bit about who I work for. I am part of a nonprofit called Mercer Street Friends. My nonprofit was founded in 1958 by the Religious Society of Friends. So we are a Quaker organization. And we have been around since 1958, and we've had many different ideations. The one we have now includes community schools. We actually are the food bank for this part of New Jersey. So we provide food to over 150 pantry partners. We also have a parenting center where we provide social and emotional care. We have the Community School Initiative, an adult education program that falls under me, and we have a preschool. So we're a kind of a very, I wouldn't say busy, but we're a well-rounded organization, our food bank being the hub of everything we do. So my first question is, who's in the room and what do you do? So if people just want to jump off mute and tell us who you are, what your organizational affiliation is, what's the role you fill, please go ahead, get started.
I can start. I am in the state of Maine with the Maine Coalition for Community Schools. We are a non-staffed coalition, so at this point, I'm kind of volunteering slash we're trying to make it real in Maine.
I'm Greg Stankwitz from New Jersey, New Jersey Institute for Community Schools. We're really, really lucky to have Bernadette in our state. And Bernadette, I don't know if you know this, but my very first site visit to community school was when you were principal there. So I'm very grateful.
My name is Devon Wembley, and I am a program manager here in the great state of New York and the city of Albany.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Celia Burton. I'm a community school coordinator in the amazing state of Maryland and Prince George's County Public Schools.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amber Harrelson. I'm at William Hall Academy, which is in Maryland, and I am a community school coordinator for the second year now.
Welcome.
I'll go. My name is Cherie Gibson. I am in New York City, and I am an parent leader and education advocate.
Thank you.
I'll go. Ramon Burnell, Wayne County Community Schools, Chief of Staff, New York.
Thank you. Welcome.
I can just reintroduce myself. I'm Helen Malone, Chief Strategy Innovation Officer here at Institute for Educational Leadership and support our Coalition for Community Schools team.
Okay. Who else do we have? It's hard to tell when I'm trying to do the two things at once, so.
Hello. My name is Daryl Riddick. I'm a community school coordinator in Prince George's County, Maryland. And I'm actually leaving a partner now. So excited about this session.
Thank you. Okay, I guess we got everybody. Did I miss anybody? Okay. So like I said, please stop me as I go. This is meant to be interactive, but some of the slides are here to help me organize myself. Okay, so I don't need to go into detail. I'm just sharing the focus of the work. We all know integrated student supports, family community engagement, expanded learning opportunities, and collaborative leadership. We know that's why we're here, and we know that by fulfilling all of these, we create a well-rounded school support system that can help schools achieve what they need to achieve. I like to say, being an ex-principal of a community school and now the director of a department, we're trying to do everything so schools can just do what they're supposed to do, and that's teach. So many of you work in schools and you know what schools value. And I think it's important when you partner with a school district that you know what the value is. Okay. And something just popped up. Okay. They value reliability. Educators value reliability. They want you to be reliable. They want you to say what you say and to do what you say you're going to do. They also like clear communication, which I think we all like clear communication, to be honest with you, from both sides. Share goals. School districts don't like it when you have your own agenda that's not aligned with what they like to do. Flexibility, though, if you work in a school, you know you have to be flexible at all times. And schools are driven by data-informed collaboration. And I don't think I'm saying anything that you don't already know if you're working with the school district. A little bit about our journey so you can understand how we became partners with the school. All right. I got to move my little pictures out of the way. So in 2015, Mercer Street Friends approached the district and they became a partner funded by an original $2.5 million federal grant with Rivera Middle School. I was the principal at the time of Rivera Middle School. So I was the first community school in Mercer County. In 2019, another elementary school became a partner with Mercer Street Friends. In 2020, we had a new CEO, and he stepped in right at the beginning of the pandemic. So you've got the pandemic going on, you've got other things happening, and now there's a new CEO, and the focus really was on food. Schools were out of session, we were virtual, and my community school partners at the time were wonderful. They were actually able to do things I could not do as a principal at the time during the pandemic. They would lead groups for kids after school. They would lead groups for parents after school after a while because they realized the people that were struggling more than the kids were the parents, being home all day and trying to figure out how to make this work. On top of, we would deliver food to families and we would deliver technology or switch out technology with families so kids could stay engaged. In 2021, I retired and I became the director of community schools. At the same time, we brought on another elementary school. So from 2021 to 2025, we had 3 schools that were all Trenton Public Schools. And we worked in the community. We were a valued partner in the community, and that was important to our expansion. In 2025, we actually found out that we received $2 million in the governor's budget to expand into other schools. And that came about because we were asked by a senator to testify in front of the Senate Committee on Chronic Absenteeism. And in our testimony, we talked about community schools. And that senator, as we spoke earlier about bringing people to visit, she had visited one of our schools. She believed in what we did. Unbeknownst to us, she put $2 million in the budget, and surprisingly, it actually passed. So last year, we expanded into 3 more schools. We had already formed a partnership with suburban township schools that were Title I's, because we realized that future grants really were about expanding, not about sustaining one small group. So we were already thinking about expansion. So we went into two township schools and into our another Trenton Public School. And the work we've been doing there has been very very much aligned to what you do when you write a grant, because I know the state's going to want large reports on what we did. And then, unbeknownst to us again, the same center put $1 million in the budget, which passed on July 1st. And we are now expected to expand into one more community school, which will be another Trenton Public School. So in the end, we will be in 5 Trenton Public Schools and in 2 township schools. So that's our journey. Before this state funding, we had no money other than the kindness of small grants and large donors and whatever money our nonprofit had in reserves to sustain us. We currently do not get any money from the public schools that we serve. And that is going to have to change if we are going to sustain the work we do. But what do we do at each school is important, which is why we need the type of money that we need. So every school has a site coordinator. They're the partner of the principal. You guys know all that. And that's what they do. But we also have an assistant site coordinator in every school. And that person actually works with children in small groups. They do SEL, they do all sorts of things in coordination with what the school does. We actually hire 3 retired teachers to work in each of our Trenton Public Schools elementary schools, and they implement high impact tutoring during the school day. In the summertime, we run a 5-week, 8:30 to 3:30 summer program at every site. We also have a choice pantry in 3 of our Trenton Public Schools. And we have a family resource center with family resource specialists that work with our families. Our goal is to support our schools as a partner, not a program. And in the beginning, that was hard for people to understand because they thought that we were just a program coming in to do what they wanted us to do. So I just shared a lot. I'm going to pause for a second. And are there any questions, any clarity people are seeking, anything? Just jump in.
Okay. I'm wondering if you could expand a little on that last sentence. How would you describe that distinction from your perspective?
Partner, not a program?
Yes.
So, so part of it is my site coordinator sits on school leadership teams. She sits on committees. My staff is actually stationed in schools. They're embedded in the school. They have their own offices. They work the hours of a school. They work 8 hours a day, but some come in as the kids arrive. Some stay later through the afternoon. And they more or less visit classrooms. They embed themselves within the school. It took me a while to get every school to get the partner, not a program thing. But over time, they realized that we're here to work side by side with you. We're not somebody that you just call up because you want something. And in the beginning, it was like, oh, we need food for this event. We need this. And I had to put my foot down. And I had to say, no, my schools have a budget and they have to live within their means. So you have to make choices. Some schools say, okay, I don't need you for this, but I need you for this. And it's the one school that is the most successful is one of my elementary schools. And they've taken it to a whole new level. We've got staff that do that we pay a school district teacher to do ESL classes in one of our schools that is largely Hispanic. We have community Saturday events at one of our schools. I always believed a school should be open as long as it can be open for everybody, not just the kids in the school, the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, the wrestling program in the community. And it's taken a while because the school district doesn't always see that. They always say, we got to pay people to keep the building open. So there's some push and pull there with the school district at times. but my principals have become much better at realizing we're a partner. The new schools we just went into, one of the principals was very guarded, very guarded. He wanted us there, but over time he started to give up more and more autonomy and became more of a partner when he saw again that we were reliable, that when I said we were going to do something, we're going to do it. So it works both ways, but it's really a lot of it has to do with the principal. If the principal does not want you in the door, it's not going to work. If the principal's not willing to share leadership, it's not going to work. So that's really important too. Anything else? Anybody else want to add to that? Because many of you are in schools. And I know that's probably hard getting schools to view you as a partner, not a program. Would anybody like to share?
I have a question.
Sure.
So Bernadette, you said earlier, hey, listen, we used to get small grants, but we also received like 2 million, 1 million. But then you mentioned at the very end of that you're not receiving any money from the budget of the schools. Now, this is a partnership, not a program, right? So they must have to see the value in order to say that we're going to set aside funding for MS, right? Because you're a partner. So then can you share with us then if you're a partner and the school doesn't share the money with you as a partner, right? Then how does it become one? How does it become sustainable? And what message are you receiving from from the lack of financial support? Whether they may have it, may not have it, could you just walk us through
Yeah,
that?
they care.
So, I agree with you. It's very hard to feel valued when they don't place any value on what we do. I mean, we get a lot of lip service. When we've been meeting with the superintendent, I meet 4 times a year with the superintendent, and I have an assistant now who helps in the schools so that I can be more central. And we've met with them, and the superintendent wanted an expansion, and we had a plan in place. And then when changes started coming to the budgets of the schools based upon new leadership in our governments, they started circling the wagons and protecting their money. So we would have conversations about, let's start small. Just give me so much every year to show you're committed. Then we got the 2 million, and everybody said, oh, I have a breather. I don't have to give you any money this year. Now we're going in the door with a conversation, and then we got another million. So the conversation I'm having starting next week with my superintendents actually lays out. It's very different. I give them a report of what we do all year, but this year I'm actually tying to the report what it's costing me. And they're going to see what I spend. And then we're going to have a real conversation about what happens at the end of the year. Now, I receive services in kind. At times, I can use the schools. In the summertime, I don't pay for security. I don't pay to use the building for events, but that does not sustain me. And some serious conversations have to be held. So getting this money has been wonderful, but it's also a double-edged sword because everybody took a breather and said, okay, we're not going to worry about giving you any money right now because you got money. So it doesn't sit well as a partnership when the other partner isn't committed in that way. So that it's a hard one. It is a very hard one. And it's a conversation we have to have right now, to make sure that we're all, on the same page. Has anybody had that experience, and how did you do it? Okay. Does anybody have anything else before I move on?
Bernadette, just real quickly,
Sure,
because
Greg.
here in New Jersey, funding is so difficult right now for so many districts. So it's really helpful to hear the good and the bad of your guys' approach, and hats off to all the efforts you guys are doing. So I just wanted to just amplify that basically you guys as an organization are covering all the costs for the site and assistant site coordinators, the social worker, and you're picking up the cost of the retired teachers to bring them in.
Yes.
Okay.
And, you know, all of these things came about for different reasons. You know, the reading intervention program came about because one of the schools approached the CEO during the pandemic and said, and when he said, "What do you need?" She said, "I need help with giving kids reading support online." So he got some seed money from Princeton Area Community Foundation to start that. And we've just tweaked it. And I will say our data is unbelievable. 90 something percent of the kids that passed the state test last year in third grade were in our reading intervention program.
Wow.
At one of the schools. So it is a true model for high impact tutoring. And I will say to Devon's point, we did get some money for high impact tutoring one year, but we got what we could get under the threshold without going out to an RFP because in New Jersey, I don't know about other states, but in New Jersey, over 40,000 has to go out to RFP. Any funding in a district. So we got under the threshold. Unfortunately, this year, many urban sites did not get high impact tutoring grants from the state of New Jersey. And I found that interesting. Trenton did not get the money this year, so I can't even tap into that. There is a conversation about carryover money. If there's anything left over for the schools that I service, can that money be used to help me offset the cost of summer program right now? So yeah, we do it, and sometimes we do it without the funding we need and we're making it work. But there's going to come a time when either services will have to be cut or districts need to step up. And that's where we are right now, is going to start having those conversations.
Thanks.
All right, let me go back to this. So how is this possible? So we just talked about some of the stuff we do and how it's possible. All right, we have a very strong community presence. As a nonprofit in the city of Trenton, we have really upped our game over the last 4 years, and we are known across the state, not just for community schools, but as a nonprofit in general. And some of that is simply the work that our CEO has done. And we actually have a, what do you call them? We have a marketing partner now that does all of our mailings, everything. So here's an example. They created a mailing about summer program. They sent the mailing out about a month ago, and I think I'm up to about $15,000 in donations. The mailing was just about summer. So and I'm in the same building as development. So I see the mail coming in. And people are donating $50, $200, $1,000 towards summer program. That'll help offset the cost of that. So we have a development program that's focused on raising money. And we have a board who really believes, because the whole idea to be a community school for Mercer Street Friends was, how can they best impact the community? And their feeling was to get into a school, because that's where you have your captive audience. That's where your parents come to. That's where your kids come. So that's where this all started. So they just want to keep doing this to work with the schools and stuff like that. The other is coordinate supports. So this is where we work very much in conjunction with the schools. I don't know what other schools in other states have. In New Jersey, there's school improvement plans. Those are for schools that are in status. Or if you're not in status, it's just a school plan. It's a school plan. We work with the principals to ensure that the goals that they have outlined are the same goals that we focus on. So we work collaboratively in that way. And to the question about how we are a partner, not a program. So when they're developing their school plans, we're part of the development of the plan. We sit on that team and we bring to the table what we can bring to the table to address certain things. It's also this superintendent of Trenton, and I'm speaking a lot about Trenton because this is where we've been. We just went into Hamilton and Ewing. We've only been there 6 months. But this principal of Trenton has made it clear that all partnerships must align with district goals. Fortunately, we are aligned. And I'm not going to lie, the benefit of all of this is this was my district. This is where I worked 37 years. I know people here. These principals were my colleagues. So I know the operations of the district. And that's important when you partner with the district to know how districts operate, because that can be your downfall, is not understanding. You don't have to be an employee of the district at some point, but to know how they operate. So making sure that all of our efforts are coordinated with them. Strong principal partnerships. I said it before, if a principal doesn't want you there, this is not going to work. You know, I see Sheree shaking her head. If you are forced upon a school, this is not going to work for you, because they need to want you to be there. They need to want to share with you what's happening, and they need to want to share the goals and the leadership in a way. So that is really important, that you have strong principal partnerships and responsive programming. You know, being aware of what's going on. An example being when the SNAP the SNAP problem earlier in last year in November. We were a food bank. Just so happens New Jersey closes for about 5 days in November for a teachers' convention, Veterans Day, and Election Day. And that was at the height of this. The district was closed. The district called us up and said, if we open the schools, will you open your pantries in our schools? So my staff went in and worked the pantries. The food bank got more food because we were not prepped for that. We were prepped for being closed for a week. And we reopened all of our school-based pantries to the community because of the SNAP fiasco. Being responsive to what's happening, being responsive to programming in the school. That really, and shared commitment to equity. And unfortunately, for us, the shared commitment sometimes feels like it's one-sided when nobody wants to contribute to this from the district side. But we are committed to making sure that everything is running equitable. And each school is different, though, as you all know. We have a standard of how we want to do things, but every school is different and everybody has a different set of needs. So these are some of the ways that we are able to accomplish some of the stuff that we do in the schools. So here's a little bit of a prompt. And I'm going to ask you just think about it and then just throw out your answers. Think about a partnership challenge that you've experienced. Was it about funding or communication, trust, alignment, or relationships? What could you have changed? What could have happened? Not you, but what could have changed the outcome? So I'm just going to ask you to take a couple minutes and give that some thought, and then, please share out. I'm not going to call on people and stuff like that. Share out if you have something you want to share. Anybody?
I'd love to share really quick. That's okay.
Thank you.
I'm I was a former school board member for my local district, and I know that one of the things that held us back was a lack of trust in our other partners. So, for example, we were told when we entered the board, don't talk to the teachers' unions. We're gonna be negotiating salaries. So, but later on, I realized that was the wrong approach, that we were all in it together for our kids, right? And if we're not sharing and communicating and trusting each other, it's going to lead to antagonism. And we got out of that period, but that was like one small little example in my mind, at least, I think of Bernadette, what you're talking about.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I just like to say that we all have partnership challenges because we work with schools and we work with people. And because of that, people stuff is messy stuff.
Yes.
There's a lot of mistrust. There's a lot of miscommunication. There's a lot of just humans being humans, right? So I say that to share that, okay, from the food aspect, a lot of our community school site coordinators who run their schools, community school directors, right? They run their schools, were, were tasked with the mission to pick up their food in their own vehicles to bring them to the schools and then unload their vehicles inside their pantries. So their pantries were at their schools. Um, because of that, um, we didn't have any funding, but I created a merger with the Northeastern Regional Food Bank where they now deliver the food to each one of our 8 schools weekly for our families, which is very prevalent to what I was thinking about when you said, "Hey, we had to open up." And I was like, "Well, did all of those families come to Mercer Street Friends, or did Mercer Street Friends bring the food to each one of those schools?" Another, that's a sidebar. But I also say, like, when it comes to inside the building, teachers don't really see or speak a lot about the impact of the community school model, right? Because if you have a partner, is the partner working with the teacher? Because that collaborative leadership is where the rubber meets the road, because the partner is speaking the same language as the teacher, which gives them an opportunity to be in the neighborhoods with the families and bringing that academia into the city. Right. And that part is missing. But remember, right? I don't know if it was Kwame Alexander or who, but they said if you don't feed the teachers, they're going to eat the children. Right? So think about, right? Like, think about it. We get monies and stuff, and we go inside the school and we make sure we have parties for the families, we have parties for the classrooms, and then the teachers' faculty lounge is the same color. We don't have one partner that has paint that can paint the room where the teachers are sitting there having discussions about our children.
I agree. I
We just,
agree.
so when Jolene was showing the magic of both the community school, our community partners, and I forgot what was on the left over there, I think sometimes we like to say we do a lot, but when the school year really starts, there's so much going on. Who is really on the team or the committee who is making sure that the system is flowing with equity in such a place that the conduit and the wheels are turning and connecting? We start out in the beginning saying, "Hey, provider, we want to make sure that your work matches the SEP," right? And then they give us their work scope. Then we sit down, we sign the contract, we allow them in the schools with our students. Then is there a mid-year that someone is saying during this mid-year, we are on pace, we are doing the mission and the vision as you shared earlier. Does the school trust us? Are we community? Are reliable? Are we doing all of those pieces? And that's only the mid-year. And then after the mid-year, we have to do the end year. And then we have to evaluate each one of these partners and whether we're bringing them all back. So I would say, I don't know. I didn't want to talk too long, but I tell you, when it comes to, you said, we are all passionate about this work. Yes, I am, very much so. Um, Strong partnerships. I'm telling you, if we don't give much more of ourselves to our partners, how many of us had partners this year who visited their partner space? How many of us have partners this year who created something in the classroom that the classroom gave back to the partners that we had this year? How many of us created partner awards for our students who graduated this year? If you had the YMCA, if you had the Boys Club, did you have the Boys Club Award? Did you recognize them, celebrate them, and collaborate with them in such a way that they would want to come back? And earlier you said, "Hey, like one, listen, I'm gonna digress right there. I'm just gonna leave it right there, Bernadette. But I just wanted to share, my
No, thank
passion."
you. Thank you for sharing because it is true. We have to bring all these partners in and work closely with them. And we have to make sure that we're all on the same page. But we have to show the partners that we value them just as much as we want the district to show us that they value us. And that's important. that we're all working together for that, because you can't do it yourself. I mean, I have a lot of partners we work with. I have Kinder Smiles. I have a mental health group for my older kids. You need these partners. You can't do it all. You need to work with the partners. Agree 100%. So some best practices: listening first, aligning with school improvement goals. This is important. Start small and deliver. I don't believe in coming in and trying to do everything at one time. Start small, deliver on what you say you're going to do, and then keep going. That builds that trust and reliability with the district. Another one is measure your impact. You know, every time I meet with the superintendent and his team, I show data that is aligned to what he wants to see, to show that we're valuable here. We're helping you get there, you know? And then the last one really is celebrate the successes. It's important to celebrate your successes. And it's important that even if you think you should get more out of that partnership, when you're celebrating everybody. You're not sharing your grievances in public. It's okay to talk privately about a partnership that's not working, but you need to work that out with the partner. You don't need to be talking about things in public like that, but celebrate successes so that everybody knows what's going on. And that's where you get people in the door to come and observe, to come and visit. Some action planning. Find a key partner in a school or a district that you can engage with. One person that you can rely on and talk to. Select your school carefully. Sometimes you don't have any say in what school you go into. Sometimes you have no say, and there's nothing you can do about that. But when you do have a say, be mindful who you select, because you want to be in a school that wants you there. You don't want to be in a school that is going to fight everything and every step of the way. Schedule a listening meeting. Be part of things that are going on. Align to a school priority. If one of your priorities is third grade girls, not getting along and blah blah blah, what's a support you can bring? Working with the school, and again, sharing those successes. Here's just I'm trying to be mindful of time. Here are some just common challenges and strategies. And I'm going to share this. I can drop this or I can share this in an email. Limited educator time. Teachers and administrators have schedules that are demanding. And I'm not going to read every one of these, but, be mindful that, if you schedule a meeting, look at calendars, work with people on your meeting, communication gap. That's important. Bad communication leads to a lot of issues. You got competing priorities. You start the year off and you're all ready to go, and then something happens at a district level and there's a shift. You have to shift with it. You can't say, nope, that wasn't our plan. This is our plan. You got to shift with it. That's showing that you're flexible and reliable. There's just a lot of challenges in working with a school district, as was said earlier, and some of them are easy to overcome and some of them is not easy to overcome. And you just got to find a workaround, because in the end, it's not about the adults. It's about the children and their families. And are they getting what they need to be successful? You got to get beyond. And we have our share, just like everybody else's. We have our share of adult issues, staff that don't get along with teachers, teachers that don't like the staff. And there comes a time where you just got to say enough's enough. If my staff is doing what they're supposed to do and the teacher's doing what they're supposed to do, just like I used to say when I was a principal, you don't have to like each other, you just have to respect each other. And that's what you need to do. Sometimes you just got to learn to get along with the people that you just don't care for. So there's a variety of things here, besides the priorities, measuring impact. The bottom one's kind of hard to see. I don't know if I can scroll down that far, but I will share this. and some lessons learned. Discuss sustainability. That is my lesson I learned. I didn't have this conversation at the onset. So now I'm chasing money instead of having an agreement when I walked in. And remember, I was a principal. So when I came on board, there was already a pattern of they're not giving us money. But I should have started that conversation early on because I feel like I'm constantly running behind that conversation. And the last thing I want to do is pull supports from children and families. So now it's a hard conversation to have. Keep on top of the happenings within the school and the district. You know, um, some of us work in big districts, some of us work in small districts, but there's always crisis. So knowing who that person is in your district that's aware of crisis. So if there's a crisis in your school and a family is affected, you know going in the door and you know how you can support them. And knowing that if you get that phone call at night, because not recently, 2 years ago, we had a situation where a gentleman fighting with his girlfriend killed the mother and the child, who was a child in one of my schools. We got that phone call late at night and we were ready to roll the next morning, providing support in that school. And that's where I showed the district I was there for them because I had some supports I could provide. We even went into a school that was not ours, but where another child from the family was, to provide support in that school because it was just about supporting everybody that was affected by the tragedy. So being aware of what's going on in the district, being present at important events. The district had strategic planning. They're rewriting their strategic plan. I made sure we were represented in that strategic planning just to hear what was being said and make sure that we added some valuable input. Brand yourself is important. You know, who are you? We have shirts, says Mercer Street Friends Community School on them. Brand yourself. Go show people who you are when you go in. There you go. You got your hat, you got everything. Brand who you are. Let them know who you are when you're coming into your buildings. And keep those school meetings. Does anybody like to share some lessons that they may have learned over time that was important to them when working with school districts? Okay, I think I have one more slide left. I'm going to share this. I don't know what my time is at this point. Um, Helen, do you know what the time is?
We have until 11:35.
So we have 10 minutes, so we can have 10 minutes to wrap up and talk. And this is just something I found that's so important, about partnerships and challenges. You know, you can't avoid them. You have to work through them and you have to work together because in the end, it's all about children and families. And we're not going to be successful if we are not supporting our families and children. And all of us are in different levels um, of planning. We're in different levels as a group, you know, and I think it's important that, no matter where you are, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to drop this in the chat if I can do it right. Um, but it's important knowing how you can, grow yourself to connect with the partnerships and to connect with the people. You have to evolve over time. We've evolved in the last 10, 11 years, and you have to say, what aren't we doing? And be reflective and honest. Would anybody else like to share questions, comments while I figure this out? Yes, go for it.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I thought I lost us. What I was gonna say is, earlier you just mentioned a little while ago that, you know, your slide said discuss sustainability, and I'd like to push that a little bit further because We're here to talk about a coalition and having the same message, right? So discussing sustainability, I feel like it should go a little further into all of us creating or using the same platform of sustainability. And what I mean by that is this. Here in Albany, we use a piece, Bernadette, Ms. Trapp, called the information station. Inside this information station, it doesn't matter if Devon, Sharia, Helen, or Tanya Richardson, if anyone leaves the organization, that organization does not go back to zero. Inside that organization, they have everything from community partners, contact information. They have, their program planning, meaning their service descriptions, their program deliverables, what they were looking for from their provider. It has inside of it the target population. So the program is going to come in and they're going to work with these SEL students at the fifth grade level because everybody doesn't need everything, but it keeps us on target as a coalition that we are all sharing the same thing. So when these folks come from the legislative office, it is very familiar to us what we're all sharing, right? We have this information station that talks and discusses program deliverables. It talks about community school pillars, our pillars, 4, 6, 8. Everybody's got something different. When are we going to get that right? Right? Advisory boards. Our information station has an advisory board that meets every single week at a school, or once at my bad, my sorry, once a month at every school, just so that they could come from the community as advisory board members, hear what's the temperature in the school, the climate and the culture, but then also share what they're doing, what they know, what information and what impact they have since the last meeting worked on and have helped the school move forward, because nobody wants advisory boards sitting on idle hands. But I just wanted to share that, discussing sustainability for us in this group and in this room should move just the needle just a little bit forward towards creating a platform that we all. So when Greg is where he is in, where Greg at? Greg is in New Jersey, and Melissa Celia is in Maine, and Celia is in Maryland, right? We're all talking that piece, right? We all sharing that. Hey, listen, we as community school providers, community school members, community school, we are talking the same language, and I think that will start to clear it up in the coalition. If that makes any sense.
I agree. No, it does make sense, and I agree with you. And I think it's really important, like you said too, people come and go. So you don't want to keep going back and recreating the wheel every time somebody leaves. I think that is very important, and I think it's important that I think the common language is important too. Because, when I first left the district and came to work, I knew the district's strategic plan, and the strategic plan did say every school will be a community school. It wasn't until I started talking that I realized they had no clue what a community school was. Even though I was one in their district, they had no clue what I was. They just thought if I call you a community school, you're a community school. And we had to educate them on what one really was. You're all agreeing to have one, but you don't know what you're agreeing to have. So yes, that's very, very true. Common language is so important. So I'm not able to drop the presentation into the chat. It's not allowed. No file. Or at least I don't have permissions. But I wrote all your names down. So I'll just email it out to everybody when we're all done here. I'll go on whatever the registration stuff is. Is there anything else anybody else would like to share? Experiences they've had? Ideas?
This is just a thought. We've been exploring how to some of the key practices in helping schools to transition to community schools on kind of an easier on-ramp. And one of the things that we've been exploring is through strategic partnerships. And that is in part creating some replicable processes for schools because creating partnerships takes a lot of time and a lot of capacity. So I'm just curious what you have developed as far as replicable processes to be able to share with schools and say, okay, each time you do it, you're going to want to look at A, B, C, and D. You're going to want to create a memorandum of some type. You're going to want to have this in writing. You're going to want to look for mutual benefit, things like that. Like, what have you kind of created a template of sorts that you use?
So I wouldn't say I've created a template. We have a memorandum of understanding with the school districts, and the one for Trenton, which we've had for the last 10 years, really required no tweaking because it's been tweaked over time. The two new districts we came on board with, I shared it with them. They sent it through their legal team to make sure that it met their needs. They sent it back. So now I've got a standard one for each school district we're in. We have a handbook that my assistant created for our site coordinators. And we have some processes that we ensure, like we present at the beginning of every school year to the staff. A reminder of who we are and what we do and where our offices are in the schools. To Devon's statement, we buy lunch as a practice. We buy lunch or breakfast for the opening faculty meeting every September. That's our way of saying, hey, we're here. Come on. you know, and some of our offices are right at the front door. So everybody knows who they have to walk past us every day, you know. Practices are that my staff has to attend. Doesn't have to be both of them, but somebody has to attend back to school night, parent teacher conferences, evening events that the whole school's at. Somebody needs to be there so that we are represented and we're there to get people in the door, to see what they need. And our three pantries are right in the school. So we've done a lot of processes over time, but nothing standard like you're talking about that we have. It's been like our practices that are in stone.
I wanted to thank you for this presentation. This has been great, and the information and talking through and thinking through some of these issues. One of the things that you mentioned in your last slide that I want to add onto, where you were talking about challenges, and I will say challenges and conflict. It's a natural process because, as Devin said, we are talking about humans, right? We are talking about people in it and stuff. And to Melissa's point, is about, in terms of, because in my head, Melissa, I'm hearing like, yeah, there should be like a checklist to make sure that you're like at least including these basic things as you build a partnership. I think one of the things that we need to build in is that there will be conflict, there will be challenges, and as well as what are you going to do to walk through those challenges or conflict. I think we can sometimes get into being conflict adverse, and it ends up causing more of an issue because as you avoid dealing with the thing because it's messy or it could be messy, as opposed to we're going to dive right into it because we're going to get more out of it in terms of our trust and our alignment and our relationship. But I think it needs to be I want to say like it's supposed to be organic, but it needs to be processed. Like if there's a conflict, here's how we're going to do it, right? And within it, it's not just this, oh, we're sorry or something happened. It's real repair, right? Making sure that we're repairing what happened as opposed to just, okay, you tell your side, you tell your side, okay, we all good, we say sorry and move on, as opposed to like, we're really going to repair this and then we're going to use that information and move on to the next. Because I think that goes to where you were saying about, because most of the issues that I see happening is the principal relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Between your community organization stuff and that collaborative leadership. It doesn't just happen because we say it, right? And it
No,
doesn't just happen even when you have it written down. It has to be about how we move through and work through those things. So I just wanted to
I agree with you 100%. I do agree. So it looks like they're going to kick us out of here in a minute. So I'd like to say thank you, everybody, for being present. And when I share this with you, if you have any questions, reach out to me.